Hi, it's Tony Robbins again. Listen, welcome to our electronic course, our e-course on how to get geometric growth in your business. Really how to be able to thrive, not just survive, no matter what the times are, including really turbulent economic times. So what do we want to start out this session? Well, we might start out with seeing what causes most businesses to fail. Because even though we want to succeed, you got to know what to avoid, as well as then what would you have to do to make your business grow geometric. And the biggest reasons businesses fail, and by the way, the number is 96% of businesses fail over a 10-year period of time. 4% make it. Now, I say make it. That doesn't mean they're even profitable. It means they're still in business. And after 10 years, by the way, does that mean it's free sailing? Well, in the world we're in today, with changing economies, changing technology, changing competition, there are companies like Lehman Brothers that, combined revenues would be $1 trillion over a decade or so. They're gone, as we all know. So what is the biggest mistake we make? Well, there are many. But if you look first to see what business is, you'd say, what really makes someone succeed in business? You go to somebody like Peter Drucker, probably one of the most brilliant business minds of the last century. And everybody agrees the two things that business is really all about that Peter said way back when is it's all about innovation and marketing. What do those words mean? Innovation means finding a better way to meet your client's needs than anybody else does. That's the only way to become wealthy and sustain it. Anybody can make money, but if you're going to be successful in business and sustain that success over years and over decades and really build a brand, something you're proud of, something that will give you the rewards you deserve, then you have to find a way to add more value to other people's lives than anybody else is doing. That comes from constantly innovating, finding a better way to deliver. But you can have the most innovative product and service, and I'm sure you've seen this in your own business life at times. Maybe you've seen somebody else and you have a better product or you have a better service, and yet somebody else is kicking your butt. Why is that? Because they're doing better on the marketing side. Because unfortunately, the best product doesn't always win. Is McDonald's the best hamburger in the world? I doubt it. I'm like hurting anybody's feelings on that one. But what happens is people think if I have just the best product, that's enough. We really have to be the best marketers today as well. And the problem with that is if you look at a business, let's say you go out to a business and you see a business getting started and it's a restaurant, a hamburger stand. And you come back to that same restaurant 15 years later and two guys were starting at the same time. You saw both their chains. 15 years later you come back and one guy still got that one hamburger store, one restaurant, he serves a great burger, and the other one's got 35 chains, 35 different venues, and he sold the business for X millions of dollars or tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. What was the difference? Was it the quality of the burger? I would say to you the difference as an entrepreneur, where your business grows is controlled by two things. Number one is your psychology, and number two is your skills. Because the psychology of someone who's just trying to make the best burger, and trust me, I've got that artist in me. I want to make the best of anything, but I also have to know how to market it or I know my ideas will just die on my lips. Does that make sense? If the greatest products don't just win by themselves. And so the guy that built 15, he really developed a different psychology. He didn't just say, I want to build what I enjoy. He kept saying, what does the marketplace need? Who is my customer? Who is really my customer? What's the best offer? What would make this irresistible? What business am I really in? Am I in the hamburger business? Am I in the fast food business? Am I in the convenience business? Am I the experience business? And different fast food chains or people that have grown have picked different elements of that through time to succeed. They didn't just sell burgers. So the point of the matter is you and I don't want to make the mistake, and here's the biggest mistake people make. We fall in love with our product or our service and not with our client, or not with an ideal client. See, when you fall in love with your product or service, it worked for centuries. Literally, you could have a product and sell it forever. Heck, 20, 25, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, even when Sony was around, Sony was the dominant focus, not Apple. And Sony owned the tech business, didn't they? They're always coming out with their new camera, their new iPhone and so forth. iPhone, what am I suggesting? Their new Walkman. It's hard to even say that it's old. I'm not ancient enough to remember that, I hope. But I am. I remember the Walkman. But they came out with a product, and it was an innovation. Nobody wanted small speakers. Nobody wanted small things. Everything was bigger speakers, bigger sound. And Marita of Sony comes up with this idea of a Walkman, portable music you take anywhere. Some of us oldest enough to remember that you didn't used to carry around with you 100,000 songs in your pocket. If you were going to go for a run, you had to take this big junky thing and have these giant ear mucks on your head, and you had to really like that one album you took. You better like that guy's music, because those 8 songs are all you had to do to run with. And oh, by the way, you had to rewind it to hear what you wanted to hear next. It's a different world today. My point is, Sony was able to do that Walkman over 20 years. Today, do you know what the product cycle is, the life cycle on an average product today? Well, in the technology business, it's about 6 months. Some places like the app business, it's a month. Some people expect it to be a few weeks before something is innovated and the product is improving, or they leave and go somewhere else. So it's not the same world you and I lived in. Today, we can't fall in love with our products and services. We've got to fall in love with our clients and figuring out every way we could possibly figure out to meet their needs, to anticipate what do they want, what do they need, what do they not even know they need, and if I could deliver that, I'd turn them not in just a satisfied customer, but into a raving fan. Somebody that would tell everybody about my product or service or tell everybody about my company. When you create that kind of an impact, you'll start to build a brand. And what's beautiful about that is during turbulent economic times, big companies become small, and small companies can become big very quickly. And the failure to adapt to this, to say our products and services have to be changing constantly instead of here's my product and I love it and you should too, and I'm going to keep marketing it to you. Those that fail to adapt don't anticipate what's coming. And here's what you and I have to anticipate. If you're going to be successful, if you're going to be in the 4% that succeed, or maybe the 1/10 of 1% that really succeed, meaning they're very profitable and they succeed long term, if you're going to be in that success category, then you and I have to say, what can we anticipate is coming? And let's deal with the problem before it gets here so we win. Are you with me? So one of those things is obvious. It's competition. How many people have failed to anticipate the competition? I mean, a little company like Yahoo. If I asked you, in the mass majority of Americans or people around the world, what's the first company you think of when you're searching online? We all know 90% plus the people say Google. In fact, it's Google it now, right? People treat it as an action, as a verb. On the other hand, Yahoo was the dominant force. They were there first. But they didn't see the anticipation of somebody might be coming, and they didn't innovate. They just fell in love with the product the way it was. They just felt like they had happy customers, and they stayed with those guys. And now Yahoo, by comparison to Google, is a joke. And nobody says Yahoo it. I mean, maybe on another planet, but I don't think it happens most of the place here. It's failure to anticipate competition. IBM with Microsoft, right? We could go through example after example. You've got to anticipate who is your competition so you can say, okay, if they're coming, how am I going to meet my customers better than they would? Even if they're bigger, stronger, there's a niche here for me. There's something I can do that could add more value. Because I'm smaller, I'm faster, I can change quicker, I can get the lead on the situation. Another thing you have to prepare for that can create a crisis in your business if you don't anticipate it is change in technology. I mean, we all know the bell curve of, when something is changing, and then all of a sudden we get that geometric change. Well, right now, human technology is just at the base of the curve where you're going to see giant jumps where in the next 5 or 6 years, things you would consider magic are going to become part of your daily life. If I pull out your iPhone right now and I asked you, who would have thought 5, 6 years ago, people would be standing in line for a phone? It'd be a joke. What are you kidding me? But today, that phone has combined all kinds of things we don't have to carry anymore. We don't have to need a GPS. You don't need to be able to carry around your telephone and a camera and your GPS and all the other apps and things that we have now. They're all part of that device we call a phone for some reason, probably just because that's what we used to call it. It's not a phone anymore. In fact, most people don't even make phone calls for the most part. They're texting, they're emailing, they're leaving audio messages. It's a different world that we live in today. So my point is, if you and I are going to keep up, if you and I are going to succeed, we got to anticipate that competition's coming. I mean, look at the book business. I create books, obviously, and you look around that industry, it's been changed overnight, right? Because nobody anticipated electronic books were going to come and they'd have such distribution that people would start using them en masse and downloading at that speed. And it's really hurt the book businesses that just didn't anticipate. Some of them kept putting it off, saying, oh, it won't matter. Or you look at the idea of renting movies, quote unquote. Well, what happened to Blockbuster? Because they failed to anticipate competition. They saw this little company called Netflix. They had a chance to buy Netflix for $50 million when their company was worth billions. They could have bought it for the price of a fingernail of their corporate till. And what did they do? They passed it up, and just a few years later on, all of a sudden this company called Netflix had done 1 billion rentals, and they still didn't buy it, and they had all the resources. And they waited too long saying, this is being overvalued, we're Blockbuster, we're the dominant force, we have these customers, they love us, we are the brand, we love our product, we love our system, it's not going to go away, at least not soon, till it's gone. How fast? Bankrupt. Company worth billions, worth nothing. Company worth seemingly nothing, Netflix, worth billions. Now, they've made some of their own mistakes, but that's part of another video. I'll talk about that right now. But the point of the matter is, you can never fall in love with your product or service, fall in love with your clients, and figure out everything about them you could possibly know so you can meet their needs better than anyone else on earth, and they will become your raving fan. Their raving fans will use social media. They'll tell everybody about you, and there's no amount of advertising or marketing that can match the word of mouth when you've delivered for people at a level beyond what they've imagined. So that's my invitation to you. You've got to really know, what is it that your X factor is? What is it you're here to deliver? What's going to be the added value that you're going to do better than anybody else? And how can you anticipate what's coming? I'll tell you another thing you have to anticipate: the changes in the economy. I mean, technology can change. iTunes came along and they saw how they could use technology, and Steve Jobs, once again, what did he do? He upended an entire industry, the music industry. And it was counterintuitive because people were stealing music. How in the heck are you going to get people to buy music when they're able to get it for free? Steve came up with convenience and quality. I'm going to give them the best quality music, not the stuff that's random, and I want to make it so cheap and so convenient that they'll do it en masse. And the rest is history, the billions and billions of downloads. And today, Apple's largest music store in the world. A music store in those days might have 200,000, different songs available. Now there's something like 50 million that are available, individual songs. Maybe it's more at this stage. It's ridiculous. And it's all available because there's a change in technology, competition, and a little bit in the culture or the economy. In 2008, listen, I have a dozen companies around the world in a variety of industries. In the hospitality industry, I have the #1 resort in Fiji, number 1 to 10 in the top, rated in the top spa in the South Pacific, of all South Pacific islands, all countries down there. Really proud of what I built. But hospitality is very different than the educational business, than the practice management business for doctors, which I'm in, than the television business that I'm in. There's so many different industries and elements, and all of them in 2008 got hit simultaneously because nobody anticipated what was going to happen to the economy. Now, do you and I really believe that 2008 is over, that it's all free sailing? If I asked you right now, is your belief that everything's positive and up from here without any stormy days? I can't imagine if you're a business owner you'd be so naive. You and I both know all they did was kick the can down line. The government right now is printing $85 billion a month. Not printing, it's too expensive. They're just adding zeros to the bank accounts of commercial banks. Those banks aren't loaning most of that money, so we're not getting hit with a lot of inflation yet. But $85 billion a month. All this has to be paid back. We have $16 billion in debt. Maybe $100 billion, excuse me, I said billion, trillion, I'm sorry, big difference, right? $16 trillion in debt in the U.S., over $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities, Medicare, and Medicaid, and Social Security. These numbers are just unbelievable. So to think that we've now, just because we're feeling good and because the economy is being stimulated, someone's giving crack to the economy, they're giving the economy drugs, and things are going well, that it's always going to go well? It's not. You say, Tony, I came here to be inspired. Listen, I'm not here to inspire you. I'm going to tell you the truth so you and I can take advantage. Here's what I can tell you. In the worst times in business history is your greatest opportunity if you manage your psychology. If you take that 80% of success, that mental, emotional muscle in you, and you find a way to succeed. Because if you look at the Fortune 1,000 around the world, and you see when did they come into business and get started, you'll discover something interesting. More than 60% started in a recession or a depression. Not in good times. And I don't care whether it's Microsoft or Apple or Disney in a depression or Chevron in a depression. The companies that do well during these times, that find their niche and grow, you end up dominating for decades if you really add value. So it's not that it's a bad time. I'm just suggesting to you that the economy is going to change. And when it does, here's what you got to do. And this is what this lesson's about at its core. You got to know the answers to a couple questions. You got to know what question is, what business am I in? And maybe, what business am I really in? The way you answer what business you're in to yourself and to other people will determine whether they want to engage with you or not. We'll start with those two questions. What business are you in? What business are you really in? I'll give you a simplistic example.